Welcome to a Toast to Truth. This is where I share the mental, financial, and emotional frustrations of being an entrepreneur. This is season 8, episode 6, launching a startup after 50. And this is also our 50th episode. So, for those of you who have been on since episode 1, I know there's a few of you who have been holding steady since 2016. Thank you for following in this journey. I have two special guest co hosts. So this season's been kind of interesting. I had a special guest co host that I did not know personally, who's the CEO of an e commerce platform. You heard Sahil in episode 2. In this episode, for the first time, I have two special guest co hosts. So normally it's just one person, but this time you're going to hear three voices. And for the longest, a lot of you have been asking to get to know my mother a little bit. So I have my mom, Charlette Freeney, and her business partner, Pansy Walker. So it's kind of easy to say, well, how do you know your mom? Well, she gave birth to me. So that's the end of that story. So let me just talk about how I met Miss Pansy. I met Miss Pansy actually in the UAE. So, for those who don't know what that is, that's the United Arab Emirates, and that is the actual name of the country. The country is not named Dubai, for anybody who is confused with geography. Dubai is like the New York City of that country. Okay, there we go. So, anyway, my siblings and nephews and we went over one year, I think it was 2013, to visit, and we were there for a month. And so that's how we met Miss Pansy. She and my mom, they went to the same church. So yes, they do have church, Christian churches in the Middle East, for those who are wondering. And we we went to her house. I think the first time I went to her house, I was like knocked out because I still had jet lag. So I didn't really interact with people because I was still a little dizzy. So everyone knows I get motion sickness. So try flying from Houston. Then we stopped in Amsterdam, and then we flew into Abu Dhabi, which is also not a country. So anyway, if you want to know more about my mom's bio, everyone knows she's a teacher. She's been a teacher for a while. Miss Pansy was also a teacher. Well, educators. They're both educators, and they've moved up. You can go to the show notes and read their bios. But they have started a company, and so that's what we're going to talk about in this particular episode. So before we get into talking to them about launching a startup after 50 and more about their company, Legacy Pro Mentoring, let's get into this episode's question. Why do a second act in life? So that's what we're going to talk about, or maybe you think about. So for me, I would say that I'm still somewhat in, I don't know what I'm doing phase of my life. And I know my mom and Miss Pansy, they have lived a life. They have done things, they have traveled the world, and now they're starting a company. So the question I ask, why do a second act in life? I'm asking, why start a business after you both somewhat have retired from education? I'll let my mom start since you all have been asking about her because you like the quotes and everything that she's been sharing. So I'll have my mom kind of hop on and introduce herself. Well, not, she doesn't have to introduce herself, I already did, but just kind of share, why she started. Like, no, let's not do why. How and when did you start Legacy? Because it's an interesting story for those who knew. I went to Podcast Movement in Anaheim, and I came back, and my mom had started a company with Miss Pansy. So, how did Hurricane Harvey help you decide to start a business, Mom?
Okay. Now, Hurricane Harvey was instrumental in so much that it was a motivator. On August 1st, 2016, I woke up and decided, okay, Vernetta says it was 2017. So 2017, I woke up and decided what I wanted to do with my life. So I got on the phone and I called Pansy. We talked for about 4 hours. She was in the Middle East, still living in the Middle East. And I decided that instead of continuing to talk about problems or shortcomings or solutions that I thought might work, why not start a company and actually implement and offer solutions for what I thought were challenges in education? So, Hurricane Harvey came through. I couldn't go to my regular job. Vernetta was out of town. My other children lived on other sides of Houston, and I had a lot of time to do anything I wanted to do. I'm trapped inside. What better to do than start a company? So I had an attorney. I had a web designer. I could talk to them on the phone. They were some. Oh.
I'm going to interrupt the story just a little bit. She didn't have them originally. I introduced you to them. Okay, keep going with your story. I'm sorry.
Okay. Vernetta, I did have them by that time because we were actually filing with the state of Texas during Hurricane Harvey. They actually got the paperwork back to us in 24 hours. I did that through the attorney. Do you remember that?
Keep going. Your story's just moving fast. Keep going.
And the web designer kind of was ducking out a little bit because she was doing some volunteer work for the city of Houston to help them with getting some Hurricane Harvey information to people. Do you remember that?
Yes, because I was over the organization where she was putting it together for us to share that information.
Okay, so that meant I was starting a business during Hurricane Harvey. Do you?
Yeah, I know that part, Mom. I'm saying, anyway, just keep going with your story.
Okay, so I'm talking to Pansy and we're trying to set up, like our company objectives, things like this. And Pansy kept asking me, how was the weather? Well, it's raining, it's a hurricane, it's pretty bad, but I'm inside, I'm okay, and the internet works, so I'm good. So that's pretty much how we started. I was focused. I was not focused on the weather. I was focused on what we wanted to do with the business as far as how we could assist teachers. And since the weather was horrible, a 500-year event, I had time.
Okay, so Miss Pansy, how did you feel when you received a phone call about my mom's idea of starting this business?
Well, first I want to say thank you for inviting me to the show. I am just overwhelmed to be here talking to you.
You're so welcome.
And I know that this is going to be like a great experience for me as well as for them. Well, when I received the call from, let me take it back for a minute. When I met your mom in Abu Dhabi, one of the things that linked us together was obviously our jobs. And I'm an academic advisor, and my field of expertise is mathematics, and she was in teaching mathematics. And so there was so much going on with the teachers there who didn't know what to teach and how to teach and the cultural norms. And she and I bonded around helping these teachers to become more acclimated to their environment and so that they could have a little bit more success than they were having.
So the culture shock got a lot of teachers.
Yeah, the culture shock. Mathematics is the same all over the world. We all know that. But when you have to put it through somebody else's filter on how to teach it and what you can't say and what you shouldn't do, and, the children's English was quite limited. We were teaching them math in English to Arabic-speaking children. And so that was a huge barrier that we had to overcome. And so, we needed to really collectively come together and come up with our skill set so that we could get these kids on point. And it started with the teacher. So that's how we bonded. When she called me about the company, I was actually in Washington, D.C. with my daughter because it was summer. And I was like, a company? Yeah, we could use a company because I'm about to go back over to the Middle East and deal with people who they're going to need a company. They need more than me. They need so much more support
Yeah.
than what's being given. And if you know anything about the UAE, there's always a big, what's the word, Charlotte? A big turnover. There's always a huge turnover of new teachers coming and teachers leaving. So
So
you
it's a
always feel like you're
worldwide
stuck.
epidemic with that. So not just in the
Yes,
United States. Okay.
no, it's and even more so there because here you have the problem with teacher retention in country, but when you have teachers who are leaving their homes to come into another country to teach, I mean the dynamics are so much more powerful. So I said to her, yeah, we need a company that'll work. And I was quite interested in working with her on that. And our focus is on mentoring teachers who really need support. And it was never to start a school. I've had people say to me, no, we don't need this. We're not teaching them. Well, sometimes we are teaching them teaching 101. I mean, you have to meet people where they are. But it was all about supporting them, empowering them, giving them the tools necessary so that they could be successful in trying to deliver this instruction to these Arab-speaking children.
So a lot of people, well, I would say a lot of my listeners know that I am a former teacher. I taught English as a second language. I officially retired in April 2018. And in January 2019, my job asked if I wanted to come back. I was tempted, I'm not gonna lie, I was tempted because I do miss the classroom, but I do understand the dynamics of going into a new space because as a teacher, as a Black American teacher going into a room full of students who have a stereotype of what Black Americans are, having to break the stereotype. So that's a different culture because most American teachers, you go into the classroom, most students are either white, Black, or Hispanic. So they're quote unquote somewhat similar to you. But me going into a classroom, I had a lot of Middle Eastern students. I started getting a lot of African students and a lot of Southeast Asian students. And so it was definitely a cultural difference because I did not know any words in their languages. So I do understand in that context of the teachers going over into a new country and you're in a completely different culture and you're trying to understand what is the right thing, what is not the right thing to do. And then on top of that, kids are kids all over the world. They will annoy you. Does not matter what country you're in. They're going to be they're going to be kids and do kid things. And then on top of that, the expectation and requirements of being an educator. I don't think a lot of people know what goes into that until they get into a classroom. Like I've had a lot of friends substitute to make some extra money. And they say, I have a whole lot more respect for teachers. I'm like, you see, when y'all saw me complaining online about certain things, y'all kept saying, no, teachers need to do this, teachers need to do that. We cannot carry a whole school. That's where a team comes in. And that's what I like about Legacy is the support that you guys are creating for teachers. And I think because teachers are so used to always being carrying burden, kind of like Black women, how we're always carrying everything for everybody and we don't ever take the time to take care of ourselves or to even unload some stuff. I think a lot of times teachers take on roles and responsibilities that they shouldn't. I know when I was a teacher, I was always up at Target, Dollar Tree, buying stuff. I taught kindergarten and first grade, so every student in my class had a birthday party, whether their parents could afford it or not. So some years I was paying for 15 birthday parties, a year, because at that age, I didn't feel that if one student came in class and had a birthday party, that the others shouldn't have a birthday party. So the
Whoa.
last 2 years, the last 2 weeks every year my class was always lit. It was a birthday party every day because I made sure the summer birthdays, because I'm a summer baby, July 1st. And I never got to have a birthday party at school because I'm a summer baby. So all my summer students got to have a birthday party. So depending on how many it was, we would just take one day. And the principal, I don't even think he noticed that my kids had like cupcakes and juice every single day for like the last 2 weeks. But I'm saying all this to say, teachers put so much into their classrooms that there isn't a support system in place usually. My first year, the mentor, she would just have me sign saying she helped me, but she never did. The second year, I got a different mentor because they moved me grades, and then she got offended saying, well, did you ask for a new mentor? Well, number one, I did not ask for a mentor. Number two, you never mentored me. So I don't understand, but she wanted her extra money. So I want to ask you two, what is the difference between Legacy Pro mentoring and the mentoring that teachers receive from what they get through the school district? Like I kind of gave an example of how I was given two different mentors. Now my second mentor, I still talk to her to this day. Like it's 2019. She and I still talk and text. She's helped me out when I needed help. So she was a true mentor, but she also said she did not get any training. So she was just going to give me what she thought I needed at the time in the classroom. So what does Legacy do that's different than what the school districts already provide as far as mentoring?
Well, I feel like the school districts pretty much give you a horse and pony show. They bring someone in.
Agreed.
A company or a person in, and they sit and they talk to the group of teachers, and they give them information that they may need or may not need. And then they go. And when they go, they take themselves away, and then there's no support, there's no follow-up, there's really no feedback for the teachers to even take what they've received and have somebody to follow up with them and to help them to make good decisions, to see what to give them observations, to audit them, to give them feedback. That person doesn't exist because they got their money and they're out the door. With Legacy Pro Mentoring, we are, first of all, we offer a customized service where if we are mentoring you, we're in tune to what your needs are. There's a relationship that's being built between you and your mentor, like your second mentor, okay? You're building a relationship. You want to know about the person. You want to know, how can I help you? You want to observe them. And, you have to realize that teachers are people too. Another thing that we offer is, because our services are over a virtual network, or it could be the phone. However, it doesn't have to be inside the school day. I can mentor you on Saturday. I can mentor you after you wash your clothes on Sunday, and now you have two downtime hours that you're ready. You're mentally ready. You're not tired. You are ready to receive some support so that you can go into your school strong for the next week. And so that's another thing that we offer that they can't offer in school. And Charlotte, you go ahead. I don't want to take all the time.
No, you were doing great. Also, just to piggyback off of what Pansy said, up front when we meet the educator, we do needs analysis. What is it that you need in the support realm? If it's conversation, if it's support looking over the lesson plan, we just determine, as Pansy said, it's custom to what will help you be your best in the classroom. We focus on actually teaching that educator how to block out their life other than that 40 minutes there in front of that child, because you want that child to focus with you for 40 minutes. Sometimes that educator needs to focus for that 40 minutes and bring out the best in that child. That means you got to block out what's going on between you and the principal, you and the team, you and other external issues. So just like the teacher is teaching the child, the teacher also needs some skills development, because your credentials say that pedagogy is perfect. You got that down, but there are so many other things that go into teaching. One of the mentees that I had a few years ago, he said that he could not make it the first year without struggling, because when he did his student teaching, he came in 6 weeks later. Well, the teacher had her routine set. He didn't see what it was for her or him to set up the classroom, to get the children under control, all of those things. So his first 6 weeks were horrible for him, because that's not something he witnessed. Not saying that he wasn't a capable teacher, but he felt incapable because he had not been in that situation, and there was no mentor like your first one who said, just sign this paper, you get in there and you can do it. So that's what
I would also like to add that as a person who has mentored and coached teachers over a few years, teachers are really not comfortable. Some teachers are not comfortable with administrators coming inside their classroom and, observing them, because they feel like it's more evaluative than developmental.
And that's because a lot of administrators don't have relationships with their teachers, to be honest.
Exactly. And so we come in and we are here to help you to develop as a teacher. Our evaluation is just to the point of saying, these are the areas that you need to work on, or these are the areas that you're doing really great on. So when you're working with a Legacy Pro mentor, we're more or less on your side of the table. We're working with you. And so you develop that relationship, and it's confident, and you feel secure and safe to go out and make a mistake. It's okay. We can fix that. It's nothing that you're going to do that's going to be harmful or detrimental. It's all a learning process. And sometimes teachers don't get that kind of support.
Okay, so before we move on, Mom, I want you to explain pedagogy, because people who are, or Miss Pansy, because there are people who are not educators, who are not going to know what that word means.
The pedagogy is the art of teaching. And believe it or not, teaching is an art. It's how you teach. It's the methodology behind teaching. It's the cognitive development, the child development. It's all of those things apart from your content. So if you're an art teacher, you already know how to draw, and you know all of the little paint brushes and stencils. That's one compartment. But now, how are you going to get this information from inside of you to this child on their level in such a way that the child is engaged, the child is motivated, and in such a way that your objectives are being met? Sometimes your objective could be how to hold the paintbrush correctly. You don't care that she's painting with green, yellow, and red. You're not concerned with that. Your concentration is on this one aspect. And so that's what we mean when we talk about pedagogy, how to teach. I used to be a Georgia State mentor, and I had teachers who would come in through a program called TAP, which is teach people who are doctors or engineers or whatever, and now they want to come into teaching. That's how they get in the door. And so I mentored a few of these. I had a guy who was a neurosurgeon in the Navy, and he retired, and he wanted to be a teacher. So his math skills were off the chart. We were in a middle school, but he had big problems trying to get his information across to the learners.
And
And
I
if you
think that
think
could
about,
be in any business. Like most people aren't able to explain their messaging or explain what they do. So yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but see, it's not just teaching. That one skill that you lack of not being able to translate what you can do to the people who you want to or need to do it for can be a great hindrance.
we had some nurses in Florida who were seeking us out at one point, and all of these were nurses, but they were teaching the nurses, and they were very upfront to say that they didn't know how to teach. They knew their content, but they did not know how to get their content across to their peers. And they knew that there was something lacking. And we went into negotiations with them, but it always gets to the point of the money. Who's going to pay? And that's one of the biggest issues that we're having with Legacy as a small business, as small entrepreneurs. Who's going to pay? We have done 3 or 4 different surveys with educators, and they all say, hands down, this is an excellent service. We really need it. I need the support. I'm a new teacher or I'm a veteran teacher. And so much has happened with the technology. So much has happened with these new age children who are coming through the door. I need support. But because teachers are not really well paid, they really can't afford the services that we're trying to give to them. And so then we go up a notch and try and work with district offices. And because, let me see how I'm going to say this. Because they are entrenched in what they've been doing for years. We've been doing it like this forever and ever. We got the dog and pony show, and this is how we want to do it. And it's not working, but they don't want to make any changes in what they're doing. And so thank God for international market, because that's where we are really starting to see some traction in our international market, because we don't have those preconceived and those prior notions.
So I hope people were listening, because I was taking some notes, and so I'm going to go back through for those who may have missed some things. I want to share a quick story. My first year teaching, I wasn't a certified teacher. I was an instructional something, because I had just got hired, and I was supposed to come and teach reading, because I had just left Atlanta working at a nonprofit, and reading, everybody knows I like to read, so that was my thing. But on the first day of back to school for teachers, I get there, I don't know anybody but the principal and the assistant principal, because that was who was in the interview. So the assistant principal was actually at the front desk when I walked in the room. She remembered who I was. She was like, "Oh, I'm going to take you to your room." So halfway down the hallway, she hands me off to another teacher who I don't know, and she says, "This is your co-teacher." And I'm like, "Oh." I said, "But she teaches science." She's like, "Oh yeah, you teach science now." I said, "Oh." So that's how I found out that even though I signed paperwork to teach reading, I get there my first day, and I am the new science teacher for pre-K through 3rd grade. And
that is so typical.
Yes, and so literally I'm learning on the job. And I would say it was maybe 2 weeks after school started. One of the 5th grade teachers had a mental meltdown in front of her students. She went home. She never came back. The other instructional teacher that they used for reading, they moved her to 5th grade. Like they gave her an emergency teacher certification or something, and they put her in the 5th grade classroom. And she's still teaching to this day. So that happened in 2007. But I'm saying all that to say, even veteran teachers, I feel, still need support at certain times, because if they're not used to, like you said, the new wave of kids, like my nephews are Gen Z, And sometimes I'm just like, just walk away from me for a moment. I need some space. I need some space. So, me being a millennial and them being the very next generation is still sometimes where I feel like I don't understand them. And, I'm not that old and they're not that young, but to see that my first, what was that, the second week of school, we didn't know how to react, myself and the other instructional aide, because this was our first time ever teaching. And so for us to be thrown into these different situations, and I almost tried to burn down school that year too, but again, I'm not a science teacher, and I was trying to do a science experiment, and it went haywire, and the fire department got called out to our school. Yes. So anyway, I have some interesting first year stories. But another thing that you stated that you were a mentor with Georgia State. I did with U of H. I had a someone I knew from my hometown, White House, Texas. She worked at U of H, and I emailed her and asked if she could get me in contact with the School of Education, because we didn't have teacher aides. By the time I got to teaching, they took all the aides away unless you were in special ed or pre-K. And then in pre-K, they had to share a teacher's aide. And so I reached out to her and asked if I could get some student teachers. She got me in touch with the person over that. The person never responded until the second semester, until like January. And I said, do you still have some students who need some hours? She was like, most definitely. So she sent 3 the first semester with us. And so it was a great help. The next year, we were getting, up to 10 students every semester. And the teachers on my campus, they loved it. That extra help, that extra support in the classroom. And then, of course, those students, most of them realized they were not going to be very good teachers because they could not handle the pressure from the kids. Like one of my kids threw a pencil at one of the student teachers, and I had to explain to him, and then I called his parents and I had to explain to them. And so during this, I was trying to teach the student teacher how to handle a situation. I said I didn't feel he needed to be suspended over that incident, but he needed to know who ran the classroom and who didn't. And after that conversation, his parents were very much on board with who ran the classroom and who did and who didn't. And I had no more problems out of him or objections from his parents. And I think because I did not suspend him, because in kindergarten, every time he did something, he was automatically suspended. So his parents gained a new level of respect for me, and the fact that I said, we're all on board on, I'm in charge, and this is how we're going to run things in Miss Freeney's classroom. So that's something I learned from my mother. She didn't suspend a lot of her students over the years for different things. She found different ways to discipline them where they can also learn at the same time. So I would say, in a way, watching my mother teach over the years was a way she mentored me without realizing it, because I did some student teaching stuff in some of her classrooms when I was an undergrad. You also said teachers need to learn how to teach. Entrepreneurs sometimes need to learn how to not so much run a business, but understand their craft. There's a lot of people out here calling themselves coaches or consultants or experts, but they can't answer basic questions related to what they say they're an expert in. And so that's a pet peeve of mine. That just really is a pet peeve. Like, learn your craft. Another thing you said, and like I said, people, Miss Pansy said a lot of good stuff, and so I'm just going back through because I want people to understand that in this process of you, through all of your experience between you and my mom and the experience of starting the business, you're seeing how some things from your past is showing back up in the business, but it's still a problem. And even though you have a solution, it's trying to get it to the right people. And where you said, getting people to pay, I think a lot of entrepreneurs face that, because as a blogger, I didn't know how to get people to pay. When I started, people would come to me and say, well, can you do this? I'm like, sure, because they were paying. That had nothing to do with what my blog was about, what I wanted to do. I just knew I could always figure it out. They were giving me money. So but over time I've learned, I can't say yes to everything. And then the last thing you mentioned that was really good was finding a new market. We talked about this in episode 3 with Michelle, where we said sometimes you have an excellent product, you have an excellent service, but the market that you're talking to is not receptive. Sometimes you have to leave that market and go to a new market. So you're finding that, the teachers, they don't have the funds for it, which they probably would if they weren't paying for stuff in their classroom, like school supplies. And then the school districts here are they're all talk. They want to say they are doing stuff for the teachers, but really they are cutting stuff for the teachers. And so you guys are looking into the international market. So these are some really, really, really good things that you shared that any entrepreneur could deal with, things that happen in your first year as an entrepreneur, learning your craft, getting people to pay, finding a new market. I want to talk a little bit about getting people to pay before we go to break. So I'm going to, have you and my mom kind of chime in on, what have you learned in that process of getting people to pay for your service?
Okay. What I've learned in getting people to pay is actually get them to pay for what they want, and then you roll in what they need. So I'm just going to back up just a little bit to your first day as a full-time classroom teacher. You and I were in the same district, so I had privileges of coming to your school, and I had the opportunity to teach your first lesson, and the students were so amenable to it because they was like, Miss Freeney, they thought that was the cutest thing ever. So because
I was teaching kindergarten, everyone. I had like the smallest student. I swear I had the shortest kindergartners. They were so little.
and that early childhood years, that's where my deepest love is for that age group, to where when you are unlocking learning for that age group, it is the biggest rush in the world for me. So that's what I love to do. But on that day, you had told me that morning, you were a little bit not feeling your best as far as being able to step in there and teach them. So I had the privilege to come in. I taught the lesson, and then I said, well, Vernetta, now you teach it. They didn't know any better. They didn't know. It was the exact same lesson I just taught, but you were getting a chance to do it real time. And that's a lot of times new teachers, maybe transitioning teachers, would love that opportunity to have a mentor or a master teacher just stand up there and teach their lesson. And then they come right back up there in the same audience to get that immediate feedback. That is something we can do through Legacy if the lesson is videotaped. Isn't that what we talked about that? If it's videotaped, then we can give you that feedback. Now, also, when I talked about getting paid, we have a product that we are using in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana, in a school, Bright Brains Montessori School. That is a product that's custom written for those teachers. Now, in that way, it is mentoring and job coaching at the same time, because unlike the American teachers, they know their pedagogy. Well, through the product, we're actually teaching them the pedagogy, how to present it, how the children may react, what you need to look for. So we're actually doing a lot of service through that product to get them to where they are the most effective teachers that they can be in the classroom. Pansy.
What was the question?
How do we get them to pay? You have to give them what they will pay
I'm sorry.
for.
I was
so
engaged in what she was saying.
Well, no, I was saying, you know, what have you guys learned of trying to get people to pay for your services?
What they would pay for.
Yeah, and I also feel like provide. You know, you stated this quite early on about when you were a teacher, you were always going out to Target and Dollar Store and buying this and buying that for your class. You supported birthday parties and all. You know, that was your money. And I'm gonna call it discretionary income because you was using it for that, for miscellaneous deals.
Mm-hmm.
Teachers do not invest in themselves. Teachers go to work, they get their degree, they, you know, do whatever they do to get that certification. But then from there, they depend on other people, AKA the school district, whatever, to give them the professional learning that they need. They don't have the mindset to, I need more. And when you find teachers who do decide that they need more, those are your excellent teachers. They go out, they collaborate, they get together, they, you know, go on LinkedIn or whatever, wherever they go, teacher pays teacher, they collaborate outside of their building in order to get that what they need. Teachers are not investing in themselves. And when you look at that area right there, we need to instill in our teachers that you're important, you're valuable, you have a very great skill. As far as we can remember, you know, when you talk about careers, it was always teachers, doctors, and lawyers. So teacher is a great profession to be in, but it doesn't start and end with you getting your certification. That's just step one. You always have to be learning. You always have to know that there's more than what I already have. And so when we talk about how do we get, or the whole thing about getting them to pay, they first have to understand that it's really your responsibility to ensure that you're getting what you need so that when you get inside your classroom, you are fully loaded and prepared to deal with the students inside of your classroom. And that goes with classroom management, that goes with assessment, that goes with data analysis. I mean, because that's the whole package. Building relationships with your students, building relationships with your colleagues, doing some cross-cultural engagement, differentiation. Teaching is a whole bathtub of stuff. All right, it's not just one piece. And so teachers have to invest in themselves, you know, and that's something that I've found that teachers are not wanting to do for whatever reason.
I agree with that.
I don't think that it's, I don't want to say that it's because they're lazy, but all three of us and anyone listening know
the fact that it's very important to invest in themselves. Like when I was a teacher, I easily would have like over 300 hours of professional development. I went to every available training. Now, my first 2 years, it was easy. The school district paid for everything. Then they started cutting back on what they would pay for as far as professional development. I realized that you could start winning free stuff if you go to professional development, because those quote unquote trainers will always bring stuff for you to take back to your classroom to try to get your principal to buy stuff. My classroom was decked out because I went to every available training. And then I saw online the Texas Conference for Kindergarten Teachers. And I approached the principal about sending us, and he was just like, well, no, I don't think we can afford it. We can't do it. And then 2 days later, I heard the first grade team was going to the Texas Conference for first grade teachers, but the favorite teacher at the school, she was on the first grade team. So I went back and I said, if they're going, and we're not going, what does that say? So, yeah, I had a reputation on that campus of being a smart ass at times. But guess what? Half the kindergarten team got to go to that conference, and we had a blast. We had a blast. It was myself. We only had 2 Caucasian teachers on campus. So one of them, and then we had one of the bilingual teachers. So we had a Black, white, and Hispanic teacher going to the Texas Conference for Teachers. We had so much fun. We stayed at this really nice hotel because that's where the conference was. We were running around. I mean, he did not understand how important us going to that conference was, because when we came back with all of the strategies, the things other teachers were doing, we talked to a lot of teachers from El Paso because, they have more bilingual classes. So we were getting some tips and some things, and we came back and shared with the other teachers on our team who didn't go. Our kindergarten team was rocking, and that's what he did not get. Like, we came back and we shared with our team, and we sat down as a collective and we said, okay, and we started splitting up the responsibilities of who would do what subject, so that we were all teaching and doing stuff together. So I guess you could say we kind of created our own mentoring space, because we weren't feeling that we were getting the necessary support from the administrators. So
that is a functioning professional learning community. You go out, you get information, you bring it back to your peers, you deliver it to them, and now we're going to support each other within our space to get the job done. That's the great one. That really works out well.
And we would have paid for that. And that was the thing. Like, when we came back and all the stuff we did and all the other grades saw what we were doing, I think teachers would pay for that if they see the tangible, immediate results of going to a 3-day conference, Yeah. And
I agree.
I don't think teachers see that because they don't have the opportunities to go unless they're paying for it themselves. And then it's hard to pay for it yourself when you have mortgages, you have rent, you have light bills, you have to pay for your copy paper. We stopped getting copy paper like my second year. And I was just like, are you serious? So I put it on the school supplies list, and the parents were upset. I said, look here, this ain't my kid. This kid did not come out of this body. We gonna need to all work together to make this this work.
That's right.
So a lot of it is the teachers, they really don't put that as a priority in their budget.
And I think we need to also say to everybody that's listening that teachers are overwhelmed. Teachers are highly overwhelmed in what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And so when you want me to do something different, something extra, take on going to a conference is excellent. But I got 2 kids and a husband, and I got to pick up this one from soccer, and I have to do this, and I have a life outside of the school. And so I think that's neither here nor there in terms of that's a problem that we can solve. But I think we need to acknowledge that teachers are quite overworked and underpaid. And so this investing in yourself may look like an extra thing that I have to do. And it is, but it's for you. It makes you more valuable. It makes you more marketable. When I was in the Middle East, when I first went over there as an advisor, I was teaching English to Arabic teachers because I worked with the teachers. I didn't work with the students. And so I didn't know anything about teaching English to teachers whose English is quite limited. And so it pushed me to go to British Council and to get my CELTA. CELTA is like a TESOL, but it's more on an international level. And that was a 6-month course that I paid for out of my own pocket because I realized that this is going to help me do my job at a better rate. All right, this is going to help me interact better. It's going to help me build relationships better. And it makes me more marketable as well. So now I'm a math teacher, mentor, coach with a CELTA. People say, what are you doing with a CELTA? You're not English, you're math. but there was a need in my career to actually have that, and that's why I had to push forward and get it done.
Okay, so for those who don't know, that's just a certification to teach English, correct? No, don't worry. I like to always explain acronyms and stuff to people. Okay, so we're gonna take a sip, and then we will be right back.
So I'm very particular about what I recommend and use. As a loyal user over the past 5 years, I chose to use Gumroad as my e-commerce platform. It's great for digital creatives like me and you. I have watched it transform to be more user-friendly, which helps when we just want to upload our work and begin selling in less than 5 minutes. I've also used it for memberships, ticket sales, consultations, and digital training videos, to name a few ways to use the platform. So far, they've put $175 million in the pockets of creators around the world, only taking a 5% cut. Not bad. Would you like to join an e-commerce platform that brings in that type of money for its users? Go to gumroad.com/invites with an S to sign up today.
Okay, so we're back and we're having a really, really good conversation, especially for those who really don't understand the whole education system, especially here in America. You are given some really, really good insight. I have many, many funny stories. There's not enough time for me to share them. But I want to talk about how Legacy started providing mentoring, and I know you guys are taking a pivot. So I wanted you to talk about the pivot and why you're taking a pivot. They're not going away from mentoring. They're still offering that, but they're also pivoting in a new direction because it goes back to, finding the new market. And then I want you to talk about the pivot and why you're pivoting. So, Mom.
Okay, now the pivot came about from teachers we were already mentoring, as I said, in the school in Ghana. They had bought educational products that are English based, and as Pansy stated, she got the CELTA because she found herself teaching English, and math is her discipline. Now, we found ourselves pivoting to writing a product that will supplement the mentoring we were already doing at that school, because the English-based products they had purchased were very difficult for the teachers to actually implement. So it needed to be supplemented. So we found ourselves writing a product that actually tailors to the international market. Because when we offer products based in America and the UK, we're writing those products for first language English speak, for the teacher, for the student. But a lot of products are being bought by countries where English is a second language. English can even be thought of as a foreign language if it's not the first or second language of that country. So what we find ourselves, our specialty is actually taking that English-based product and being able to convey the message or the lessons and the strategies of that product into other language, into the way those teachers can actually understand it, digest it, and then teach it to their students. So that is the pivot. So not only
you're creating like literacy phonics stuff for, okay, so we got to use, layman's terms because people weren't even that bright in school. Some of y'all weren't, let's just be honest about that. So y'all are creating ways for young early learners to really know their sounds and how to read a little bit more effortlessly. Is that it?
Yes, it's not so much skills and drills. I mean, everybody does that. What we want to do is just unlock learning. And just being able to decode a word or being able to just say the sound, that's not learning. That's just something people memorize. So what we're
So allowing kids to not be forced to learn, but to naturally gravitate
Engage
towards.
in
Yes. Okay.
they're
So
engaging in the learning process,
okay.
whereby, yeah.
So for those who are not getting it, if you've been in school or if you're a parent, this is worksheets and drills. Like when I was a teacher, I did not do homework and parents would cuss me out. And I said, if I wanted to know what you knew, I would give you the homework. But since I don't care what you know, your child's not getting homework because I know what they know. And besides, a lot of the parents, I did not want them to mess up how I was teaching their kids. So we didn't do homework in Miss Freeney's class. But I knew when I taught kindergarten and then when I got moved to first grade, there were some students who just did not get certain things till May. And when it clicked, it was like the light bulb went off. And it didn't matter how much I tried to drill it in their mind or say it over and over. That pressure, I noticed, would get to some of the kids and they would tense up, they would cry, so I learned to back off. I learned early on in my career that some students, they're just not going to get it when you want them to get it. They're going to get it when they get it. And you can't force it. And I think a lot of times we as educators try to force it because we have so much pressure on us that they have to hit a benchmark. Like we were testing our students every other Friday in the district. Every other Friday, a district test was given to us to give to our students. And every 6 weeks, they had another major test to see the 3 previous. It was so much testing. So what you guys are doing is allowing the students to actually want to love to learn, want to not just read the story because they're told to, but read the story because they want to. Is that correct?
We're building skills. I'm sorry, Charlotte. No. We're building skills so that the students have the skill set to be successful. And let me just give a shout out here to my partner because she is the expert on early childhood. That's not my thing, but I am being very supportive and I'm filling in the blanks as need be. And so it's not so much about them because we're talking about 3 to 5 year olds. They're babies. They don't know and they're not supposed to know. But when it comes down to doing the things that they need to develop their body, the fine motor skills and the eye-hand coordination, these are things that our babies need to learn. And unfortunately, they're not learning it prior to coming into the kindergarten situation, which is when they really knew it. I would venture to say that those children who were stressed out in your first grade class and were only getting it at the end of the school year, that's probably because they didn't get what they needed on the front end. Had they had
true.
Had they had some additional training, skill building when they were 3 and 4 years old, when they got into kindergarten, they would have had something to work with, for her to work with, to move them along. Our children are entering kindergarten and they're not ready. And so with our product launch, Legacy Launch, we are launching our young children into kindergarten with a strong foundation, with skills, because that builds their confidence, that helps them to want to learn, as you said, that helps them come in the door energetic and bright because they know stuff. It's nothing worse than coming into a place and you lost. You don't know where you are. You don't know what's going on. Everybody else gets it. So automatically you're in the blue group because you don't know.
You're right about that. I had students who would just come in, like in kindergarten. It was my mom. my mom, she knew all of my students, and all of my students they knew my mom, they knew my sister, they knew my brother, Miss Valencia, Mr. Travis. Anyway, one day I look up, because it seemed like I kept getting all the new students. And I'm just like, why do I keep getting all these new students? I look up one day and they say, oh, you have another new student. I said, okay. He had never been in daycare. He had never been in any kind of school whatsoever, but he was smart. He had an untapped intelligence. He was extremely gifted. So I wasn't too upset that they, gave me another new kid with him. But I've had other students I had this one student who licked his shoe, not using his hand, but he licked the bottom of his shoe. And my sister almost had a heart attack. She was like, why did he do that? I said, you know how basketball players put, like the sticky stuff or the water so that they're not sliding all over the basketball court? She was like, yeah. I said, he's seen that. He saw that, and so he thinks that's what you're supposed to do with your shoe. I said, and so you have students who see things, but they're not taught. There's a barrier between your tongue and your shoe, Mm-hmm. So you guys are teaching the barrier between the tongue. The tongue and the shoe. So that's what Legacy Launch. That to me, that's the best way to explain what Legacy Launch is. You guys are teaching you're the barrier. You're teaching the kids like, okay, yes, you can lick your shoe, but you don't lick it directly. You have a substance. You have, you put it on the floor and you put it on a little sticky mat or whatever. So how did you come up with this idea? I know you said that you're working with the school in Ghana, but if you're quote unquote, if your service is mentoring, and this is going to go, a lot of entrepreneurs, I need you to pay attention to this, because you are offering the service mentoring, but you also saw that your customers needed something else. And so instead of just referring them to someone else, you added something else to make sure that they got what they needed. So how did you know they needed it, and why did you decide to offer it and not just, refer them to someone else?
Well, in that I could reflect back on talks that I've had with principals throughout the years. I remember one day being evaluated, and when the principal came to evaluate me, it was actually a day that I was giving a math test. So I didn't want to just all of a sudden put the test off and do a model lesson so that I could participate in the dog and pony show. I decided to go through with the lesson plan I had prepared, told the principal this is what we were doing. So in my classroom, I had walls that taught. In Texas, that meant for me, every lesson that I taught, there was a chart, a poster, a practice lesson somewhere on the wall. So you could actually, with your eyes, go around and see a sample of everything the children had learned throughout that 6 weeks that year. So this was toward the end of the year. So this particular math test was comprehensive. These students were first grade. There was a 3-step math problem, and one of my students, his name was Cedric. He sat and he put his hand on his chin, and his eyes started at the door. He sat in his seat and he scanned the walls until he found what he needed. He looked at it, and what it was just gave him an idea of how to approach the problem. Now, at 6 years old, that was a lot of processing. Well, I panicked a little bit because in my mind, I thought maybe he would be perceived as cheating because the principal was in there evaluating me. So he looked down, he saw the problem, he finished his math test, he turned it in. The principal at that time, she handed me my evaluation form. She said the very fact that that young man knew what the math problem asked him, he knew that he'd seen it before and he knew where to find it. My evaluation was over. I didn't need another one the rest of the year. So when those teachers in Ghana said that the program that they were using that was based in the UK was confusing, then I knew if they couldn't do it, the children couldn't do it, and there would be no help the rest of the year if they just fumbled through and just a lot of the phonics programs that I research, they basically say the children will eventually come. That is not how I teach. So that is not how I wanted them to teach. So we designed a product that would take care of the confusion, because I want those children to be as successful as Cedric was.
So for those who are listening, you're working with a client and you see that they're struggling with something, and you create something else. So I want entrepreneurs to get this. This is how you keep clients for an extended period of time, because you see another problem as you were trying to solve that one problem. So you create a product. You know what? They're going to stay with you. I'm sure while you're doing this, something else is going to come up, and you could possibly create another product, and then they'll move on. So that kind of goes to the life cycle of a client. For those who don't know what that means, it means how long are people going to work with you. So for me with blogging, I know a lot of what I was doing in the past, the life cycle was one time. I would say one client I did work with for years, the CPA, because I would do her events and some other things with her. So she was a long client, but it goes back to some earlier episodes in this season where I talked about I never paid attention to I was making money from that particular service, but instead I kept deviating into creating other products and doing other stuff. And it was taking me away from the one thing that was bringing me money, where it was on a continual basis. And every time she needed that, I was the only person she wanted to call. And so you have to understand what the life cycle of your customer base is. If you are a consultant and you consult for like a couple of hours and you only consult on one or two things, you're not going to keep that customer for very long, that client for very long. You're going to have to keep getting new clients. And personally, it's exhausting. I know. So what you guys are doing is actually somewhat more strategic and smarter, because you're creating a way for them to stay with you longer, so you don't have to go out and keep getting new clients to fill your pipeline, because it is more expensive and time consuming to get a new client than it is to give something to an old client. That's what I keep hearing.
I would also like to add that the product that we're providing, we're also engaging our mentors. They're part of the process as well, because our mentors, some of them are experts in early childhood. And so they are looking over the product to make sure that we're crossing all the T's and dotting all the I's. They are adding in bits and pieces that would make the product more stable, stronger, adding in the extensions. So it's not just something that Charlotte is writing alone. We have our mentors who are actually a part of the process as well. And so this keeps them engaged, and it also helps them to see that we're not just focused on just one aspect, because education is, as I said before, it's a bathtub of stuff that you can do in education. And so our mentors are actively engaged, and we also have an affiliate program where they bring business in. You know, what about this? I have a young lady whose husband is from Tanzania, and she said to me, oh, they could use mentoring over there.
Oh my God, that is the country I want to go to. Like, of all the 250 some countries in this world, that is the one place I want to visit before I die. I had a student from Tanzania. I fell in love with everything she said about her country, and I was like, that's where I want to go before I die.
Well, you very well might get your opportunity because, you know, she's actually doing some research to find out who we can talk to, who, you know, get us a name, get me an email address, and we can start the conversation with them to see if we can service you, because it's all about providing a service for people who already made the investment. These teachers here in Ghana, you know, they made an investment that's way different than anything that we've done over here, you know, and so we don't have a choice but to step in the gap and to work with them because they've already made the initial investment.
You know, something I want to bring up, in last episode, I talked about esports, the emerging digital frontier. A lot of people are seeing Africa as like the land of opportunity, because most of the population on that continent, Africa is a continent with 54 countries, and geography was probably one of my favorite subjects, so that's why I keep referencing things. Anyway, so on the continent, I think about 52% of that continent is like millennial and younger. Like, it's a very, very young continent. And so there's so much opportunity as far as people to do business over there. And first of all, like, I would put my teacher hat back on if y'all go to Tanzania. No lie.
We're gonna hold you to that. We're gonna hold you to that.
No lie, because first of all, Tanzania has the Serengeti. They have Mount Kilimanjaro. They have, they have Zanzibar. Like, they have so many different things. And then I met this film director from Nigeria, and she was giving me more information about East Africa, and so I just felt even more in love with it, so I have to see it. But anyway, so for you guys to be in Ghana, to look into Tanzania, I would say that's the right track, because they have the young population, which means they need to be educated, which means a lot of their schools, I know, don't have quote unquote trained teachers. I know in some areas it is just the people who finish high school who maybe come back to their village or something like that. Kind of like how America was years ago. Like, if you finished 6th grade and you could read very well and you were 17, 18, and you were a single woman, you the teacher now, you know, in some far off little house on the prairie place. So not saying that Africa is like that, but it's similar in the sense of now that they have this young population, and this population is eager. You know, they're creating technologies, and they have co-working spaces. Yes, there are co-working spaces over in Africa. Very cool digital technology spaces over there. So they need the infrastructure for the teachers to be able to teach a digital student population, because they're going from very, very old school teaching techniques with no technology in the classroom, barely have chalkboards in some schools, to all of a sudden now they're going to need to know technology. So Legacy definitely has the advantage, because you all have the international contacts. Everybody who works at Legacy has international teaching experience. So where do you see, because we're going to get ready to wrap up soon, where do you see Legacy going? I see Legacy really being a strong imprint in Africa. Where do you guys see Legacy going?
I would like to. You go first. Oh, okay. I'll wrap it up really quick. Okay. in the United States, there are 1 million millennials having children a year. Okay, so. But
they say we're not birthing enough, because you already know I ain't trying to birth no babies no time soon. So.
Well, 384 million people in the United States, and only 1 million given. That is a small number, but that's a good number for us. Okay, I'm just saying. Pansy's a mathematician, but I'm just saying 1 million millennial births a year, and our target group is ages 3 to 5. That's potentially 1 million little customers per year. That's an opportunity we have in the United States. Now, if you look at that worldwide, not saying that every country is birthing 1 million babies a year, but we do see the potential, because if you catch them early teach them how to learn, then you have a lifetime learner. That's what we want, because we want teachers that have students who want to be there.
So critical thinking skills, in the words of my youngest nephew, he's
Yes.
using his critical thinking skills.
Yes.
I also want to add this. Yesterday I was in a meeting with one of our partners, and he showed me a chart of I think he said somewhere about 27% of the population of are English speakers, the world.
The world population, yes.
Yeah, the world population are English speakers, and they have access to everything that's online. But then you have like 62% that are not. All right. And of that 62%, China is, oh my goodness, I can't even remember the number. It was so outstanding. China, the Arabic nations, and the Spanish. Those are the three areas, languages, that still need so much in terms of education. Now, when you think about the product that we have, we're talking, Charlotte just talked about in the Americas, the 3-year-olds. But I want you to think about those people who are living in the Arab states, in South America, in China, the 3-year-old, even if you only got one kid in China, just one. That's a huge, huge market. And so it's all about taking what we have and providing it for those who are ready to receive it. That's going to require some translation. You know, it's going to require some other tools that we may not have, Legacy Pro Mentoring, but we have partners. And collaborating with others, again, that's something that we learned early on in our journey with Legacy, that we can't do everything. We don't know everything. Truly, we are 2 school teachers who had a dream, had a vision, wanted to do something else. And I'm not going to tell you how many learning curves that we have tripped over, been successful jumping over, got banged at the wall, because it's a journey for us. It's a learning curve because we don't know all of this. Again, we're teachers, but we know that enough that we have to partner with people who know, which graphic designers and lawyers and accountants and these people who do the SMS and the SEOs and all of that stuff. Those are professional people out there. And they're out there to give us the service that we need to help us move forward.
Well, and we didn't get into all the things that you've learned, but you mentioned that. But I would say for 2 teachers, you were essentially running somewhat of a tech company, you know? And so, yeah. So your second act in life is running a tech company. So this is kind of, you know, I don't know, maybe we got to do in season 9, y'all come back and we talk about some of the pitfalls or something. I don't know, but we're going to get ready to wrap up, because this was a good conversation, and I'm glad it's, you know, closing out this season, and I'm also glad it's celebrating the 50 episodes, because if you were paying attention in this episode, there's so much that you can learn, that it wasn't just about teaching or learning or being a student. It was a lot of business gems that were dropped on things that they discovered along the way. And I tell people all the time, because people ask, you know, when I have Fusion Tour, how did you create Fusion Tour? Because I would put everyone in groups based on their strengths and their weaknesses. I said I got that from small group when I taught. You group people based on their strengths and their weaknesses, and they help each other, and you can bow out. And so a lot of what I've done over the years with my blog, with my events, with everything I've done, has been based on something I used to do in the classroom. So don't discount teachers, because, you know, there's a lot of wisdom in what they do in the classroom. But a lot of them need that mentoring so that they know how to use that in the classroom. So we're going to get ready to take our final toast of this episode in this season. Okay, so we'll start with Miss Pansy. What do you want everyone to leave with this episode?
Well, I want to again say thank you for the opportunity. It's been wonderful. I feel like I want people to leave knowing that, first of all, when you get ready to turn the corner to do something new, you can do it. You have everything that you need to be successful, especially if you're a teacher, just like Vernetta just said, because we have so many skills that we don't even know we have them until we have to use them. I want people to know that this is Vernetta's 50th episode.
Yes, it took me since 2016, people, like literally February 2016 to February 2019 to get here, but I got here.
Yeah. And I don't take it lightly that she has 50-year-olds at her 50th. I mean, that's like so monumental to me. But I want to congratulate her on her 50th. And I also want people to know that you can do whatever it is that you put your heart to. Invest in yourself, be confident, and know that your opportunities don't have to just be in your county, in your state, or in this country. This is a big world out there, and think about how you're going to get to the next step. Doesn't have to be just here. There are challenges along the way. God knows there are challenges along the way. But if you keep on, I mean, I heard somebody say once, one of my other mentors, if you keep throwing wet tissue up against the wall, something is going to stick. And that one thing that sticks is going to be what's going to take you to where you want to go. Don't be afraid to volunteer your services. Don't be afraid to just put yourself out there and meet needs, even if there is no monetary feedback. You might not get paid, but you're going to get something more valuable, which are contacts, which is experience, and you'll also get an opportunity to know what you're trying to do and to work out the bugs in your system. That's all I want to say. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Okay, Mom, what is your final toast?
Okay. Now, I do want to thank you for having us on. And as Pansy said, you know, the 50th episode and we're 50 plus. And so, you know, it's like double diamonds. I mean, you know, what can you say? But I would also like to say what I'd like to leave with your audience is, in the beginning, I talked about us doing a needs analysis with the teachers. What do they need? With your audience, instead of a needs analysis, just what is it that you're good at? That actually can enhance any business entrepreneur journey that you begin. I always take an inventory of yourself. What are you good at, so that you can at least offer that thing and build from there, because your passion may be different than what you're actually good at. But what you're actually good at can be your cash cow. So just keep that in mind, that you were inherently endowed with something that can keep you abreast financially the rest of your life, other than what you were trained to do because somebody made you go to college. Now, I made you go to college. I see your face. That was just kind of that.
I wasn't going to say nothing, y'all. Let me deviate. I'm going to let my mom finish, but let me tell y'all this story. So I never applied to college. And when everybody else was getting their acceptance letters, Mom was like, oh, you know, she really thought Mom were just coming late. It wasn't until we got to like high school graduation where she was like, you never received a letter. I said, oh, I never applied to college. I don't know.
And you still alive?
I know, right? And so I woke up one morning. She was like, come on, get in the car. Because we were living in Arlington at the time. She drove me to Tarrant County College, which is a community college. And she registered me for school. So that's how I ended up at college. But I never applied. I was in AP classes. I took college classes in high school. I was 16 when I took my first college class, and I never applied to college, ever.
Thank God for mothers. You better treat her right when Mother's Day comes.
I know that's right. But I'm just saying, now college isn't for everybody. And the reason why I brought that up, if you look at the teacher population that we are servicing when we're talking about teachers of early learners, some of those teachers are 18, 19, 20 years old. They haven't been to college because they're teaching at daycare. They might be helping out at a home school. They might be volunteering at a church school, but they have been entrusted with the education of small children. So what I have learned that it is really hard to unlearn a bad habit. Mm-hmm. So with what we want to do is don't teach the bad habit. Reach out to those teachers and teach them how to do it right the first time, and give them some of the confidence. And just maybe that will encourage them to actually go to school to get the credentials to be that classroom teacher. But while they're sitting in front of our precious 3, 4, and 5 years old and they don't know how, at least provide the tools to let them have some semblance of success in front of those students. So
and I just want to add one more thing to that. This product is not just for educators, it's for parents as well. Yes. Because we have quite a few parents who, like you said, the child didn't come to school until he was 5. Where was he and what was he doing? He was at home with somebody, the babysitter, the parent, or somebody. This product, Legacy Launch, can also be used in the home with parents. As you're sitting down with your child, parents want their children to be successful, right, Mom?
Yes.
And so we want.
I felt that on a spiritual level.
Parents want their children to be successful, and they want them to start out on the right track. Legacy Launch is that product to help put your child on the right track for education. You can do this. It builds confidence with parents. Do you know how many parents are intimidated when they go to school to see the teacher? We're trying to build self-efficacy and confidence within the parent so that when you go to school with Sean or Jessica or Sheila or whomever, you feel confident that you're here to say, this is what Sean can do. This is what Sean needs help in. I know you ladies would have been shocked if a parent came in and said that about the 3-year-old. We can do this. We can provide this service, Legacy Launch, for our parent population who they want to help their children as well. So it's for parents as well. Grandparents too. If you're a grandparent and you with your little grandkids, girl, you could do this. Just get your Legacy Launch package. Everything is inside. All you got to do is sit down with your grandchild and work with them, because that's what I do with mine. Thank you so much. I'm done.
So, and I'll have, all the links and everything on the show notes. But I would say my final toast for this episode is don't discount your previous career. If you were a sales clerk, or you were a teacher, or you were a construction worker, don't discount the skills and the experience from those jobs as you're transitioning into your business. Or if you've been in business a while and you're like trying to follow what all these people are saying online, some of your experience could actually be that differentiating factor that sets you apart from everyone else. Like I said, I use a lot of what I do in the classroom, and that's why people like my events, like the ice cream social I hosted last year with Chandra Webb. Like, people loved it, and that was all based on, because she's an educator as well. So we use things that we did in the classroom, and we understood the downtime and allowing people to have downtime, but not too much downtime. And we allow people to work together in their groups on the different games, but not too much time. So but at the end of the day, people really love that event. So don't discount your past experience on past jobs. I would say the final toast for this whole season. Ooh, it's been quite interesting season. A lot of new business beginnings that you guys have heard about, from Gumroad to the African American Marketers Association that launched February 2019. If you're listening to this in the future, to my mom Charlotte and Miss Pansy launching after 50, and then Shamir creating the fastest growing creative agency here in Houston. What I want you to take away from this season is it's okay to pivot. That's going to be the big thing, because a lot of us, if you listen to each of the episodes, we all made a pivot, and that pivot is what propelled us. If I didn't make a pivot from what I was doing to focusing solely on events, I would not have worked with Live Nation. I would not have worked with Cirque du Soleil. I would not have closed clients that have national tours for their events, and I'm doing their event marketing. If I did not pivot and focus solely on one thing that I'm good at, and I love events, I wouldn't have those opportunities. If my mom and Miss Pansy didn't pivot when they saw the need for their client, then they could have ended that with that client. And now they have to go out and search for more clients to do that one same product or service. Same with Michelle. For her, she's blog podcasting, and now she has the association. She saw the need. She made the pivot. I know some of the people who are on her leadership team, so it's a very good, solid team. The same with Sahil with Gumroad. He used to work at Pinterest. He was one of Pinterest's first employees. And over the weekend, he built that e-commerce platform. And I've been with them for 5 years as a customer. So these are pivots. So that's what I want you to take away from this this season. And then with Shamir, she had to make a pivot because she became a single mother after her divorce. So all of these pivots that people have taken have led them to bigger and brighter things. So that's all I want to say for my final toast. So again, y'all, this is probably my longest episode, but it was good, and I'm excited. This has been a Toast to Truth with me, Charlette R Freeney, and my special guest co-host, Charlotte Freeney and Pansy Walker. This is season 8, episode 6. This is episode 50. We're talking about launching a startup after 50, and we talked about some of the consequences we have encountered over the years. Thank you all for listening to this episode this season, and for all the previous 49 episodes. If you have not, please go back to VernettaRFreeney.com/category/podcast, or you can go to Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Libsyn. We're everywhere. And listen to A Toast to Truth and all 50 episodes, because trust me, you are going to get the knowledge and the resources that you need for your business. And that's all we have for this episode.